Good. So, hello, I'm Chris James. I joined SaltPay as a software engineering lead a month ago, but this is my first time talking to you all as a wide group, so you need to be kind or you'll upset me. So, what you're going to take away from my talk today, what you're going to learn is that work in progress is an organizational killer because it causes delays and reduces quality. But the good news is that if you can get visibility of your work in progress, it helps you find the bottlenecks and waste within your organization so you can do something about it. And if you can start to manage your work in progress, you'll be able to improve the flow of value through your system. And another important side point is that in the big picture, individual resource efficiency is not really important. The thing that dictates our ability to deliver value is how work flows through our system. But mainly what we need to take away from this is that you need to focus on finishing work and stop starting new things. So what is WIP? It's quite an easy thing to understand conceptually. It's just the amount of work you're doing at once that hasn't finished. It's unreleased value. It's really bad for a business to have, say, 5 projects going on at once that have all been going on for like 6 months, 18 months or whatever, and they're only 8% done because they still haven't delivered value. So I'll move on. And when you're talking about WIP, you can be referring to your own workload, or you could be talking about a team's workload, or even the organization's workload. So what are the consequences of high WIP? I think we all understand the problems of doing context switching, of juggling multiple things at once, of different projects or different outages and things, and how challenging that can make a day for yourself as an individual. But the higher the WIP is for your team and your organization, the more likely you're going to be making these context switches. And loads of organizations have people who are working really hard. They're putting in the hard hours, but nothing really seems to get done. I hear this quote quite a lot. Everyone's working really hard, but we just don't seem to be delivering. And you have this feeling of chaos, of feeling overloaded with the amount of work that you're having to work, juggle with and try to prioritize against. And it ultimately leads to slow delivery. But also this kind of context switching and a lack of focus on work means that the work tends to be of low quality. And what that tends to do is it means you have to start reworking stuff, or you might get outages. And the problem with this is that that further increases your WIP. When we get an outage, people have to stop what they're doing and do something else. So you've increased your WIP. So the lower quality of work that a company puts out, they get more WIP, but what's worse is it's unpredictable. You don't know when your software is going to go down, or when your system's going down, or when your factory is going to blow up, but it could happen. So it's basically impossible to manage. And you can end up in this WIP death spiral where you're juggling loads of work and you're juggling outages and all sorts of customer complaints and all this kind of thing, and it just becomes impossible to manage. So how do we manage WIP? Well, the classic way to do it is to create a Kanban board where you model how work flows through your system. It's really important to visualize WIP. You can't do anything about WIP until you visualize and understand it. And then what you need to do is set WIP limits. And what it means is that in this particular example, this team can only do 4 things at once. It doesn't matter if some CEO or something comes up with $1 million idea. The only option you have is to either get another piece of work finished so that you free up capacity, or you cancel a project. Because it's important to keep the WIP number to a manageable capacity. And this can feel frustrating. Like we're saying, seriously, we can only do 4 things at once. But what this constraint does is it forces you to attack the problem at a different angle. What you need to do is think about the bottlenecks within your system and the constraints you have, and find ways to isolate and work with them and improve them. Think about the value chain. Think about how work goes through your system and try and improve it so that work can flow through your system more effectively. And then the aggressive WIP limits don't seem so aggressive anymore. Because rather than having stuff stuck in the doing column for a long time, work tends to flow in a predictable and smooth way. So the good news is if you can manage WIP well, you can get that predictability and that flow for your organization. So I'm going to go through a fairly contrived example. We have some tech company that has a recruitment team who are focusing on sourcing loads of candidates. And they're very kindly doing a lot of work in terms of looking at CVs, finding people, doing screening calls, and all sorts of other things to try and make sure that we're getting good candidates. The next part of the value stream is for the candidates to have a technical interview. But the problem is there aren't enough engineers to conduct these technical interviews. So what we've done is we've identified a bottleneck within our value chain. But what's worse is that we're actually causing waste. The recruiters are causing waste because whilst they're working hard, and finding these really good candidates, because downstream there's too much of a constraint, these good candidates are just getting put off and they're running away. No candidate wants to be in an interview process for a month. They want that stuff turned around quickly. But if we have, or if this contrived company has a bottleneck, you're going to lose people and you're going to have waste because of these bottlenecks. So what do? You need to think about how work flows through your value chain. So the recruiters just need to stop sourcing candidates at this stage, because getting any more people is just waste, because all that's going to happen is they're going to get stuck in the back of the line. No one's going to talk to them, and then they're just going to run away and think that the company's rubbish. And instead, they need to think about the value chains. They need to think about ways of reducing pressure downstream. So they need to work with the engineers, get feedback on the candidates so far, and find ways to vet the candidates so there's less wasted interviews. The developers need to understand that they're a bottleneck. But rather than just sort of going, I don't have time for this, they need to be honest with themselves and think about how they can improve this bottleneck. So they should work with the recruiters to help again with this quality piece. They need to, sorry, my cat is now in the way, obviously. They need to delegate this technical interview process, right? They need to think about training their colleagues so that they can help out with this task, so that they can, open up this bottleneck. But maybe this is pointing to a broader issue. Maybe the developers themselves are working on too many things. Their own personal WIP is too high because they're dealing with some outages or dealing with this other project or another project that's come along. They need to ask themselves, are they juggling too much stuff to do this important task? And then they need to think about how they can reduce their own WIP. And then if they could do that, obviously, if they could help with the recruitment, that would also help their own capacity. So how should teams think about WIP? So as I said, you need to control and reduce your WIP. Have fewer projects going at once. Have a bias for finishing work. Be aware of the sunk cost fallacy. It takes a brave leader to take a project that's been worked on for say 6 or 9 months and then go, we need to stop doing this. We need to cancel this work. But it might be the right thing to do, because then you free up capacity for people to work on projects that are more important, and therefore you'll have a better chance of succeeding, of delivering value. Working on small things is easy and achievable, and the reverse is true. Working on big things is more difficult and it's less likely to succeed. So try and find ways to break work down into smaller pieces. You need to think about the quality of your work, because I've said here that whilst flow is important, a flow of trash is not helpful, because if you keep just churning stuff out quickly, it might feel good, but it will bite you in the bum at some point when your customer complains about something going wrong, or your web server's blowing up, or your factory blowing up. So you need to think about the quality of your work, and you need to keep thinking about how you can increase the quality of your work, because the lower quality of work you have, the more likely you're going to have unplanned work. And that's the thing that really hurts your ability to have a predictable flow of work. And this might require a bit of a culture shift. And it might require people to be a bit brave. And when they have a manager pressuring them to get something done quickly, they need to push back and say, no, we need to do this work properly, because if we don't do this work properly, all we're going to do is hurt ourselves tomorrow. Some would say having high quality work has a degree of upfront costs, and people talk about time to market and all that kind of business. But it's cheaper in the long run, and it will improve your flow. It will improve your ability to deliver further value later down the line. It's no good delivering something quickly now if for the remainder of the company's lifetime, it can't deliver value. And this kind of approach doesn't work in a kind of command and control hierarchical organization, because it's the people on the floor who understand the things that impede their work on a day-to-day. They're the people who understand this particular thing really slows me down. This particular thing really hurts my colleagues when they're trying to do something. So you need to have a culture of people on the floor being empowered to improve the way they work. How can you help as an individual? A simple one is, if you finish a task, rather than picking up a new piece of work, see if you can help a teammate finish their work. That way you can lower the team's WIP and improve flow. Think about your place in the value stream. Think about who you depend on and who depends on you. And think of the ways you can improve flow. Sorry. So that you can, just think about ways that you can improve flow, kind of like the Contrived example. And ditch your to-do list, have a personal Kanban board, and then visualize your own work. Are you actually finishing work, or are you juggling loads of tasks every day and not really getting anything done? I promise you, if you have your own Kanban board, it will help you just prioritize your work and get a better control about how you approach every day. So that's the end. To sum things up, be aware of WIP and visualize it, manage the WIP, set some limits, champion quality so you have less unexpected work, and think about your place in the value chain and how you can improve the way work flows through it. That's it. Rapturous applause. Thank you. Oh, so that actually went a little bit longer than 10 minutes. My apologies. Are there any questions or comments? Well, my cat has some.
Chris, that was great. That was wonderful. Thank you very much for putting this, into the context and the framework. I think it's really helping, like, to understand that we're all on the same page at the end of the day. Just there are some practices that needs to be adopted, and we need to realize, like, okay, how can we move forward from certain things and prioritize them. No, thanks a lot for sharing.
Yeah, I think I really want to emphasize the fact that, like, sometimes in an organization it can feel hard to affect big change, but at the very least you can think about your own WIP and you can start managing that with your team as well. And just, if you just have your own Kanban board, you can just turn around and just say, no, I'm juggling too much stuff at the moment. Could you get someone else to do that? Or is this actually important to do now? Or can we do it tomorrow? Because I think a lot of people just sort of fall into the trap of being, because it's nice to have a can-do attitude to things, right? And go, yeah, sure, I'll do that for you. And yeah, I'll do that for you. And it's good. And you don't want to discourage that. But the problem is, if you do that too much, you actually you're letting yourself and your teammates down, because you won't really be able to execute on anything because you'll just be juggling too much stuff. Do you have any questions? No, she doesn't have any questions.
She really loves the topic.
It's because she wants dinner, basically. She's not interested in work in progress limits, are you? No, she's not.
I have a quick question. So do you think OKRs is basically a way to control WIP?
In a way. So to control WIP, you also need to understand priorities, right? Because the notion of WIP is that, in particular WIP limits, is that what you're acknowledging is that we have a capacity and it has a fixed size. And at some point, people are going to ask for work that we just can't prioritize. So OKRs help you make those kind of decisions. So I think it's really great that we have OKRs and we're taking them seriously, because it does let us make more informed choices in terms of what we want to work on, because we do have a fixed capacity like that. That's inescapable. Every company does. Understanding what that capacity is difficult. But again, if you start visualizing WIP and sort of understand how work flows through your system, you'll get a better idea of what your actual capacity is, about how much you think you can actually do as an organization. Any more questions? I would say, if you don't, as Ria said in her first talk, everyone can contribute to the Lightning Talks culture by offering feedback. And sometimes it's not comfortable to offer feedback in a public forum like this. Like, if you want to tell me that was trash, it's fine. You can tell it to me in private, and I'm a big boy, I can take it. But offering feedback to people after they speak is a really good thing to do. Even if you're not comfortable speaking yourself as a speaker, giving feedback to people is a really kind and great thing, and I really want to encourage everyone to do it.
It was great, Chris. Thank you very much, and thank you, Ria, too, for the initiative. Both of you, it's amazing. I think, yeah, we all should do something like this.
Absolutely, get in there.
I'll think about it. I'll think about it.
Yeah, but don't make excuses. Remember, Ria said you should set yourself a deadline so you don't procrastinate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Chris.
commit to the channel.
That can be
Okay.
just one WIP, isn't it? If you have too much going on, but
Very true, very true.
no,
Okay.
I mean, just a quick comment. I mean, really appreciate what you guys are doing here. I think is a great initiative, as Anya was saying as well. Yeah, I think you know, the more we share, the more we learn together. It's part of our culture, and I think you guys are enriching the culture by joining us and driving this initiative. So much appreciated.
Thanks, Dan. Cheers.
Thank
All right,
you.
I'm going to kill the call. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.